Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Pigskin Project YouTube channel. Doing the intro here. I am Matt. We're doing a solo recap Sunday show. Tons of games to get into today, but for the most part, just addressing. I have been gone for over a week now. I sound much better than I did. Uh, and this was a great week to come back in getting into the games. So, not going to waste any more time. This one's going to have a different flow than some of the other ones. With going game by game. At the end, we'll hit some rapid fire with some games that like Jaguars Chargers happened, but I don't have major thoughts on it. Steelers Bengals happened, don't have major thoughts on it, but for the most part, your team is going to be touched on in this video by me. Let's hope we don't go crazy long, to be honest. But let's start with the noon slate, talking Bears Vikings. The Bears 7-3 for the first time in what, over a half decade. They beat someone that they are familiar with this season in Minnesota, and they almost lost the exact same way. They were in control for 3 quarters of this game, and the difference in this game compared to that one is they had their opportunity late to drive down. They got a big kick return. They kicked the field goal. They win the game. But starting with Chicago, and then we can hit the McCarthy part of this. The Bears' offense is still this. Like, this was the first time they weren't overly explosive and what they were looking like as a unit. Um, do you think about like their first drive or their first in the first half, they had one drive span multiple first downs, and it was the 15 play touchdown drive that goes 8 minutes. They take the lead on it, and they respond to that in the second quarter with 2 interceptions. One of them creates a field goal in field goal range by I believe Kevin Byard, and then the second one holds points off the board for Minnesota by Nashawn Wright in the end zone. And so you look at the scoreboard ending up being a 2 point game, and that's a 6 point swing right there. It just continues to speak to what Chicago is as a defense. They make splash plays, they make their havoc plays when needed. At the end of this game, you get into all the like when Cairo Santos missed that field goal. I had no doubt in my mind Minnesota was going to kind of take the lead at some point in this game. But in the end, the returners are the difference. Devin Duvernay, built by Texas, he figures it out, and he has a big return to put him in field goal range. And the Bears are 7-3. And then for Minnesota, this is a 4-6 Minnesota team who they sent the kitchen sink at this game. The way they deployed their defense today, they blitzed Caleb Williams on 24 of 36 dropbacks today. Their second highest blitz rate of any defense. That's not even just Minnesota. That's just any defense according to NFL Pro. And just being able to, like, the way the defense hung in this game was very, very impressive. And you can't have 3 points for 3 quarters if you're Minnesota. And I know that's pretty cliche, but I'm still. I can sit here and say like I want it to be better for JJ McCarthy, but at the same time, I don't know how much better I expected this to be. Like, I feel like we all had the same understanding and the same kind of expectations where it's like he's going to be erratic throwing the football. He wasn't an overly accurate player coming out of Michigan. He gets frantic in the pocket because of his, injury history, and he misses balls because of it. He misses reads because of it. He doesn't throw over the middle of the field with pristine kind of like Darnold like accuracy that like what made Darnold so good last year was just being able to rip that 15 yard dig over the middle of the field and be accurate and put it on these guys' numbers, and they're going to catch the football. Today, that was not the case. They did not catch the football. But you just think back for Minnesota's season, losing this season and now sitting with 6 losses in November after they were 14-2 going into the final week of the season last year. It's just a weird sting to have, but it's the nuances of the NFL seasons, carrying over. And I think they thought they could buy the offensive line with Ryan Kelly coming in, who's barely played, and Will Fries coming in from Indianapolis. But for the most part, Minnesota has a great defensive performance. The offense kind of lets them down, and I'm still at a point even if they're 7-3, I still just want to see the back half of the Chicago schedule because wasn't overly impressed with the passing concepts. I think they do a lot of deep play action. Um, they ran 8 separate personnel groupings today, and their 11 personnel, which is 3 receivers, they ran at a season low of 27%. That was a team who wanted to lean into the run game against this blitz heavy defense, and it worked just enough. And they still have like the red zone problems, or even like getting there uh, today specifically. So interested to see where they go from here, and continue to just rattle off games. Now we move on, continuing on the noon slate. The Buffalo Bills circle the wagons, beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 44 to 32 in a game that like Josh Allen of old would just smile at. He was explosive down the field. The way he was maneuvering the pocket. He had 3 rushing touchdowns, 3 passing touchdowns, and then 1 chest pass interception that set up a direct Buccaneers touchdown score early in the second quarter that I think made us all chuckle and laugh that he can still do those things. But for the most part, Keon Coleman was inactive. That one was weird. Deion Dawkins then called him out in the post game, told him to grow up. So interesting to see how that goes. And play style wise, like he barely fits this Buffalo team. And then the Buccaneers, like they had their best rushing performance of the season and it didn't matter. I don't think Baker played his best. There was too many misses. Like I'm not even like, oh well, he didn't throw for 200 yards. He didn't throw for 2. He just had some misses downfield that I was just confused by. And Buffalo gets the victory. They have 49% passing success rate in this one, so not like overly explosive, but a 48% rushing success rate, even if James Cook didn't have an otherworld performance like he's had this season. And then, I mean, you're sprinkling in Josh Allen's legs in that one too. But on late downs, 3rd and 4th downs, they had a 57% success rate and a 1.03. So they were adding essentially a point every 3rd and 4th down conversion today. That's just pretty tremendous stuff. But Sean Tucker, I believe, will be pleased with his performance today. If you get that shout out, good on you. Good on you. But not much to add from that one. Like Buffalo gets back in the win column. The Buccaneers are still like, I know it gets tighter with the game we're talking about next, but they're still in the driver's seat for the division. But this is a game where the quarterback's got to play better. The defense needs to be better. You're not going to have to face Josh Allen every single week in Buffalo. So I think the Buccaneers will be fine, and Buffalo looks to be fine and seems to just have a little hiccup against, who was at Miami. And now we move on to the other part of this division. The Panthers pull off an incredible win against the Falcons. Bryce Young throws for over 400 yards in a game where he left with an injury, came back, and just was lobbing it around the yard, man. Just throwing it around the yard. I wanted to see here. Yeah, I mean, Tedero McMillan had 8 catches, 130 yards, multiple touchdowns. And Bryce Young going into this game had thrown for 150 or fewer yards in more games than any starting quarterback in 2025. And you have a game this year where the Falcons have not allowed the most passing yards they have allowed this season in a single game was to Drake May, and Drake May had like 260. So again, like just like the game that was earlier this season where the Panthers beat the Falcons 30 to nothing, you again get this bizarro world where Bryce Young is throwing for his career high. He is just throwing it around the yard in a game where he's like, it looks like his ankle is coming off his body. And they figure a way against a bad rushing defense, too. Like, we also got Kirk in this one. And, like, Drake London was still phenomenal. But just a fun game that this adds to the intrigue of Atlanta's season because this was a team that gave away their pick this season to get edge rush help, and their edge rush help has been pretty decent. Like they've been pretty decent rushing the passer, and it's more so because of the scheme and because of how they're so attacking with their blitzes and their sim pressures. But for the most part, like this wasn't a game that it's a weird game. Like I don't put it on Penix. I don't put it on the offense. I put it on like the backup quarterback had to come in. Like that isn't. It's just a weird place to live, and maybe I should be more harsh, I guess, because Kirk is paid as much as he is, but he's been benched. He's been effectively benched, so there's not much to add to it. But I thought the offense was like the offense when Penix was in there for the first, 2 quarters, the first half was dynamic, and they were moving the ball down the field, and it looked exactly as it should be. Bijan finishes this game with like a 35% rushing success rate because of, just the total volume that he occurs in the second half. But overall, man, I just there's not much to add on Atlanta's side except like it just adds more confusion and doubt on what this offseason is going to stare at. And then for Carolina, I mean, they're 6-5 for the first time in forever. Like this team is winning games, and they're in the hunt graphic for legitimate reasons in November for the first time in forever. They finally have a game where the quarterback is awesome. Like, so, I mean, I've been pretty pro. Like, I think this might be his last season. And again, it's one game. But to see it put together in a game against a pretty solid defense, like, I'm not going to sit here and say this is a bottom 5. This is not Dallas. This isn't Dallas. This is a really good defense, and he put it on him, man. So. And now we continue to move on to the final game we're going to talk about of the new slate. The Packers and the Giants. The Packers get back into the win column. The Giants have Jameis Winston out there, which you get the. I think this game ended the way Jameis Winston would want it. Throwing that interception down by 7 into the end zone on it looked to be a miscommunication with him and Jalen Hyatt. And Jameis didn't really rip the ball as much as I think all of us kind of would desire. Like, you kind of want to see him throw the ball 50 times. He didn't. He threw the ball 29 times today, had over 30 dropbacks with some multiple sacks and some scrambles. But for the most part, I think the New York offense, like Tyrone Tracy was, every time I was looking up at the screen on this one, Tyrone Tracy was having a successful carry, having an efficient carry. He had a 53% rushing success rate on, 13 or 19 carries today. Jameis was under pressure almost 50% of the time today. That's the highest mark for the Packers this season. 48.4 is the exact number. And then to the Packers offense. I mean, the Packers offense looked kind of similar to what it's been. This team has moved the ball down the field. They run, and then they throw it down the field. They definitely figured it out into the second quarter and beyond. They had a stretch there where 3 out of their 4 drives were long, sustaining drives that ended in touchdowns. They had some extra point issues. But overall, they had a touchdown at the end of the game that took the lead. That they kind of went right down the field. Had the big 3rd and 10 completion to I believe Savion Williams, where shout out Chris Brooks on that one, the running back in pass protection. That was an awesome rep. If you haven't seen it on that 3rd and 10, that's the difference between winning and losing some of these games on high leverage spots, and Jordan Love makes the throw down the field. But the Packers get back in the win column. The Giants continue to drop down. I was interested to see how the Mike Kafka offense would stem indifferent to the Brian Dable offense, and for the most part, the concepts were pretty like stereotypical, over the middle of the field, kind of 5-step drop, get the ball out. Jameis didn't do too much in the creation department, which you don't expect him to. But a pretty efficient Giants offensive day. I think this is the way you would want to win if you're the Giants getting to 21st, except the Packers then leapfrog them with a touchdown after. Next, we're gonna go. So I don't fail to hit on it. Um, the Eagles beat the Lions 16-9, which I'm gonna check here on the standings live on the show. Did that determine the 1 seed? It did. Okay, the Eagles are the 1 seed right now. So this game effectively decided the 1 seed. The other game that we'll talk about here in a minute did not. The Eagles beat the Lions in a game where Jared Goff had almost 40 dropbacks and completed 14 passes. A.J. Brown got peppered with targets early in this game. Overall, Jamison Williams had a penalty on what was it, on an excessive celebration where he jumps into the field goal pole, and that cost them 15 yards, in which they then missed the extra point. So that effectively takes a point off the board. It didn't end up mattering, but the most explosive receiver on Detroit was their running back in Jahmyr Gibbs, who had multiple, I think, like 30-yard down the field plays, just little swing screens at the line of scrimmage. But overall, Philly continues to win in these ways. They continue to win these one-score tight games. I don't think it's ever going to look pretty for this football team, but they continue to get a victory. The Lions, this is one where, do we keep having Dan Campbell call plays because of things like this and the performances that this entails? But, if you just look at numbers, this is probably one of the worst passing performances by both teams in a single game. 31% success rate for the Lions, 35% for the Eagles. Both of those are bottom 11 percentile. 11th percentile for the Eagles, 5th percentile for the Lions. So not efficient passing games in this one. Again, another Eagles primetime game that we're all like, are they actually good? But they have 8 wins. So you kind of have to sit there and say, I think so. They won the Super Bowl last year. A.J. Brown is catching the ball this time, but it still doesn't feel right. But the reason that I will stem to say that they're good is I don't know if anyone's good. I don't know if anyone's good. I know this defense is really, really good. So, again, if this defense continues to lean onto what they do best, but just a weird Lions performance. Like, they were explosive like they can be in the pass game. They had multiple, downfield explosives. Some of them to Gibbs. Jameson Williams' touchdown is what, 45 yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown had one at some point in this game. But overall, the Eagles prevail. And last but not least, I saved it till the end. That's not pass interference. That wasn't a false start on the tush push. The referees were pretty poor in this one. I don't like to make it an emphasis, just from my own. I think there's so many valuable parts of the game to talk about before you even talk about a referee's performance. But this one was not good, and I don't think we're gonna see this crew again if we have a Lions-Eagles playoff performance on the horizon, which could absolutely happen. These could still be the best two teams in the NFC, and I wouldn't blink an eye in 8 weeks when the playoffs start. So, yeah, I mean, Eagles get the win. If that pass interference isn't called and the Lions get a chance to go down and score, do they score? I don't know, but they have a chance to score. And we're talking about this game a little bit differently than we are in this exact moment. But that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. But when we come back, I'm going to talk about the 4 late game windows, what I saw from those, and then we'll hit rapid fire with all of the other performances that I didn't hit. I don't really need to go too in depth on. And we are back, continuing on with the second half slate. Seahawks, Rams. Sometimes football analysis is as simple as this. One team threw 4 interceptions and the other team didn't. That is the difference in this game because the Rams have the interception to start the game. Cam Kinchens, after they go turnover on downs, they score a touchdown right after with Kyron Williams, which it takes every bit of touchdown. Like they get a goal to go situation and they run the ball 4 straight times along the 5-yard line with Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua and Matthew Stafford, the MVP frontrunner, and they finally punch it in. A lot of Blake Corum goal line back stuff, but they punch it in there. The interception later in this game, what was it? When this was still a pretty tight game, to be honest with you. 12-14, like the Rams didn't score for a long stretch here. Darnold throws another interception. Cam Kinchens gets a good return off of it. They score 7 points off of it, and they're back up to a 9-point lead. And then, Seattle's best offense today was in kind of the 2-minute final 5 minutes of the game. They ran 11 plays in 3 minutes to score their touchdown drive, in which everything was kind of dink and dunk down the field. The Rams they don't really pressure you anyway, so they're not going to pressure you in a game where they're up by 9. And then they force a punt, talking about the Seahawks. And then Ethan Evans has one of the best punts I have ever seen in my life because the ruling on the coffin corner in 2025 is if it hits the pylon at all, it's a it's a touchback. And so you're kind of incentivized to not kick it straight coffin corner. He does. It's a perfect punt, and within half a foot of the pylon, it just misses. And they're down at the 1. Seattle has to go down, which, to their credit, they get almost there. They were very slow operating. They were very slow moving. They didn't get out of their own 10-yard line until there was 50-ish seconds left. They got the ball with 1:40 left. So just think about that. They were just very slow operating in those high leverage moments, but they still went down, got it within Myers' theoretical field goal range with 1 second left, but they missed the field goal. Overall, I don't feel any different with either team except the fact that I think this is going to... I'm interested to see Seattle's counterpunch off of this. And what I mean by that is Kyron Williams in the first half gashed this offense. They gashed this offense with what they were able to do with it. We talked about the personnel groupings all week long. I feel like everybody nerded out over, all right, Seattle plays nickel because they have Nick and Eamon. He's basically, another linebacker, but he moves like a safety, so we match everything in nickel against the Rams, who are running, 13 personnel, not in an abstract rate to like 50% or anything like that, but almost 20%. It really helps what they do in the run game when they're able to get 3 tight ends on the field. And in this game, the first half specifically, he finishes with 12 carries, 91 yards, and a touchdown. The first half, it was like 6 carries for 75 yards. Like, they were gashing them up and down the field in this one. But in the second half, and especially when Blake Corum was on the field, that was not the case. So they were able to match all of that stuff in the second half, and the Rams couldn't really lean into it, and they kind of leaned into their run game. Pseudo became, running a lot of things through Puka Nacua and running a lot of, quick targets to him. He had a 75% receiving success rate on 8 targets. So 6 of his 8 targets generated positive EPA this game. So again, just another plus in the Puka Nacua department. And then for Seattle, I mean, JSN, they did not convert explosive touchdowns. They were still relatively explosive in the pass game. Like JSN has the down the sideline catch. Kenneth Walker had a quick little dump off pass that he took for an explosive. Shaheed got involved at some point in this game, not enough. And then Cooper Kupp almost had like one of those explosive touchdowns, but it bounced on the turf and then into his arms. But that was the big thing with Seattle is if they're not explosive converting touchdowns in the pass game, can they go on long sustaining drives and finish them? Today they were not because Darnold threw 4 interceptions. I don't know what it is. Chris Shula is his boogeyman. In the game last year with the Vikings against the Rams, the guy could only take sacks. The guy could not get rid of the football. Today he gets rid of the football, doesn't get sacked once, throws 4 interceptions. So whatever they're doing over in Los Angeles, it's going to be an interesting study. And then shout out Jared Verse. Jared Verse is pretty phenomenal. This again on a weekend where we get Lions, Eagles, like Rams, Seahawks felt like it delivered more in the like this is the NFC Championship game department, which is pretty cool. Like this is some new blood in this with some old blood at the same time. With Stafford and McVay still around. But this was a fun one. I had a fun time watching this one. But we move on to the other side of the conference. The Broncos beat the Chiefs 22-19 in a game where I have been very critical of what Bo Nix has been this season. I think he played the best half of football in the second half of this game that I have ever seen him play. Bar none. I think that was the best half of football he's played in his career. What they were able to do down the field with him in this half, when they needed the drive after the Mahomes interception, when they created the turnover in the red zone, he went down the field, and they even got bumped back on that, which I think it was like a blindside block or something like that. They have to go down the field 90 yards. They do it. And then the final drive, the final drive to have what he had in the Stones department, to drive down the field and have, what was it? They had a 3rd and 15. He converts to Sutton, in which that's before the 2-minute warning. So if they don't get that, they're punting the ball back with the 2-minute warning to Kansas City, who still had timeouts at that point. He had a 3rd and 5 down the field, to Sutton again, where Sutton just got across, where they kind of ruled his knee down weird, and that wasn't even on him. Like, Sutton makes that close because he does like a little step back move, which I hate. Zay Flowers. But then he has the throw down the left sideline to Franklin in tight man-to-man coverage, where you got to make the throw, and he delivers, puts them in without a doubt field goal range at like the 20-yard line, and they sink it and beat Kansas City. I thought Bo was phenomenal in the second half, and so I really wanted to give him his props for this one because I was not expecting that performance. I was not expecting him being able to play like that, and if he plays like that, because we're at this point, we're in November, they're going to win the division. They're going to win the division. I'm going to sit here and I'll stand on my, stand on the soapbox. They're up 4 games over Kansas City right now. They're up multiple games over the Chargers. Unless the Chargers were to beat them, Kansas City's not winning the division. I'll say that. I'll do that. No, I want to stand on the Denver thing. Denver's going to win the division, but you just see the gears turning in my head. But the Chargers play Denver week 18. There's a world where Denver doesn't doesn't care about that game except maybe the 1 seed. But those two teams are separated by 2 games right now, 9-2 and 7-4. They still have a bye week each. Um, and the Chargers beat Denver. So the Chargers are still in play for the division. I don't think Kansas City is. But for Denver to just full circle this moment of like 60 seconds of rambling, if Bo Nix can play like that for a half in the playoffs at Mile High Stadium in January, they can go all the way. Like, I think that's kind of the feeling we all want to have. If that's the player that I can get where he is taking care of the football, they are selectively explosive downfield, he is aggressive downfield, he is making the throws downfield, and they can still lean into the run game just enough like they did today. It wasn't efficient, and they still don't lean into his legs enough, but he won this game as a pocket passing quarterback, and I had my doubts in high leverage moments like this. Could he do that? He did it. And so shout out Bo Nix for that performance. And then Kansas City. Talking Kansas City. Are they dead? I don't think so. It's an uphill battle, though. If you know, you know, you know. They lost to Jacksonville, who is the 7th seed right now, at 6-4. So that's essentially a 2-game lead. Jacksonville still has Tennessee twice. They still have, I think, the Jets on their schedule. Like, Kansas City still has the Chargers in this division. They get the Colts next week. So, again, like, they still get Denver again. What if Denver sweeps them? You know? So, it's not, like, clean, like, oh, Kansas City's definitely not going to make the playoffs. But there's a world where this was a game that they needed to get, and they didn't get. And so you're going to take a deep breath and say, does 10-7 really get us there? I don't know. And going 10-7 means they go 5-2 from this point on. And you think about Baltimore. Baltimore's still hanging around this group. Houston is 5-5, and Houston's defense is able to just take over games still at this point in time. I'm interested to see how they weather the storm, because I think it's ironic, because I think a ton of like media people, and even I agree with it, is like the vibes are just so much better with this team. The vibes are so much better as a drop back offense and being explosive down the field. Like, Tyquan Thornton is able to walk on the field when they needed him to have a 60-yard completion. He did in a big spot in this game. Where last year they just never had that guy after Rashi went out. Like, they transformed Worthy into more of a volume catcher of the football. Just interested. I'm interested. They're 5-5. I can talk about the vibes all I want. They're 0-5 in one possession games after going 11-0, 12-0 last year. Just a crazy, crazy spin zone for a team that I trust the infrastructure. I trust the quarterback. Might not be their year. Might be a year where 9-8. Like, and I'm at that point where it's weird to say that out loud, but you're getting too many of these performances where it's just not enough, and you need it to be enough. They're losing all these swing games. Like, you think about, this is the last thing before we hit a break, but like every swing game they needed. The Chargers right now. You would love to have the Chargers get, like, these are their 5 losses. The Chargers, who are in the wild card hunt. Philadelphia, who they lose by 3 at home. So just for vibes, I mean, it's an NFC team. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of the playoff race, but it's coming off the Super Bowl loss. You wanted to win that game at home. Then they lose to Jacksonville, who is in the wild card race with you. Buffalo, who ironically enough is in the wild card race with you, and now Denver, who is first place in the division. Every swing game that Kansas City has needed to get, they've seemingly lost this season. And so, how many more swing games can we give them? They still have Houston on the schedule. They still have the Chargers again on the schedule. They still get Denver one more time at home. So, I'm not sitting here saying they are dead. I don't want that to be, don't clip me, Kansas City fans. But I'm sitting here saying that I definitely see a world where they don't make the playoffs. I definitely see that world. So, interesting stuff in Kansas City. But I'm going to take a quick little pause. When we come back, we're going to hit on the final two um, late games pretty quickly, and then we'll go rapid fire on all the other games. And we are back, finishing out um, the kind of the rapid fire section of this. We'll talk about each game, but going first is the Niners and the Cardinals. The Niners stay in the playoff race, 41-22. But kind of the fun things are, Brock Purdy is back. Brock Purdy was efficient in this game, .24 EPA per play in this one with a 57% success rate, 87th percentile. So very good stuff in a return that always felt clouded because he's been gone for so long. And the last time we saw him was against Jacksonville, where he was horrific. He was terrible. So for him to have this performance was pretty impressive. But I kind of want to go to the Cardinals side and just like laugh at some of the box score stuff. Jacoby Brissett set an NFL record today for single game completions with 47 today. And Michael Wilson caught the ball 15 times on 18 targets. And I believe, what was it? 11 of those 15 were within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, which only Brock Bowers has done this season, and I think it was against the Jaguars. So the Cardinals also had 17 penalties, the most in their franchise history. So that was pretty impressive to do that. McCaffrey had one of his most efficient rushing performances of the season. He had a 69% success rate. So I think that says more about the Cardinals' rush defense than the San Francisco run game. But McCaffrey is still very, very good. George Kittle looked explosive down the field. Jawan Johnson caught every ball thrown at him. This was a game kind of in the background. Well, the two kind of heavyweight games that I just talked about were going on, and you kind of would look up and go, oh, Niners are moving the ball down the field again. Oh, wait. No, that's the Cardinals. They're wearing all black. And then the Cardinals would move the ball down the field. You know why I say that? Because the Cardinals had over 200 more yards in this one. 488 total yards for the Cardinals today to 281 for the Niners. 19-point difference. And they both had the same amount of first downs. But the difference is one team, like I mentioned, had 17 penalties and 3 turnovers, and one had one 15-yard penalty and 0 turnovers. I was thinking about the other day, are there any real hot seats after Brian Callahan gets fired with the Titans and Brian Dable gets fired with the Giants? I'm interested to see if Jonathan Gannon gets to pick a quarterback, because I think this Kyler Murray thing is done. I think basically soft benching him. This is as oblivious soft benching as you can get with Kyler going to IR after being questionable all week a few weeks ago. And now Brissett is out there, and Brissett is just like hucking the ball 60 times. Like, he didn't get sacked on 57 attempts, on 57 dropbacks. That's insane. That's pretty cool. But just overall, I'm interested to see where they go from here. Does Gannon get an opportunity to pick a quarterback, or do they fire him with the idea of bringing in an offensive guy to then pick the quarterback? Because they're at 3-7. You're not out of the realm of picking a quarterback in the top 10. And Monty Ossenford has been there for a while at GM, so I think if you were to trade Kyler, you were to recoup those assets, turn it into a quarterback, you can. I don't know if they do. But I do believe that there's going to be a new quarterback playing for the Arizona Cardinals next year. We move on to the other game of the other overshadowed 425 game today. The Ravens beat the Browns in a weird slugfest in a game that, yes, Shedeur Sanders played in. So everybody stop what you're doing. Shedeur Sanders played football today. He had a negative .67 EPA per play today on 21 attempts. So every 3 plays, he was losing 2 points off the scoreboard, how bad he was. At one point in this game, he had a 23% passing success rate. He finished with 29, and that's also stemming from like Jerry Jeudy on 3rd and 10 converting a first down. He had a really good throw to Harold Fannin on that final drive. I was impressed with that throw. It was in rhythm on time. But yeah, I this is still Gabriel's job. I wanted to see Shador play. There was a real excitement with the Cleveland audience when they realized Shador was going to play. So that was entertaining for me to watch. I think this, obviously you just want to see Shador play football just because of the overall charisma of the entire situation of the player, and you're not going anywhere. So why are we sitting here watching Dylan Gabriel check it down every other play? But yeah, Shador came in, took a few sacks, tried to lead a game-winning drive, almost did. He had a throw to the back corner of the end zone that he just missed. That would have tied this game up at 7, but or not at 7, but they were down by 7. It would have scored 7. Calm down. But yeah, I mean he had a typical and by the way, he has not had any. This was like a major emphasis was like, well, he hasn't had any, and he goes with the ones. Yeah, he's the backup quarterback. That's like kind of the it's kind of the point of it. Is we're not going to see him have many reps with the ones when he is the defined emergency quarterback until Joe Flacco's traded, and now he's all of a sudden the second quarterback. So yeah, I mean it is what it is. But let's talk about the other parts of the game. All right, we had to hit on Shador Sanders first. The Ravens' offense is still like in a weird stalemate because I could talk about how bad Shador's EPA was. Lamar Jackson's was negative 0.39. So again, that's also pretty awful. They had a 41% passing success rate in this one with Lamar, and he's usually really, really efficient. They didn't run the ball particularly well. Again, that's also product of the Browns' defensive line and what Myles Garrett was able to do. He had 4 sacks again today. That's the best defensive player of my lifetime. And then like Aaron Donald like pops in your head, and you're like, Matt, just calm down. But I mean, those guys are battling. Those guys are duking it out. Could you imagine if like this is how you know it's late. I'm thinking about a super fight between Aaron Donald, like Mortal Kombat style Aaron Donald versus Myles Garrett. But you get what I'm saying. But the Ravens' offense is still in flux, to be honest, but they win again. They win again. So it's like they're in the race. They're 5-5, just like Kansas City is. I mentioned them before. Myles Garrett had a tremendous game, and then lastly, like the touchdown to take the lead on a fake designed tush push from Mark Andrews on 4th and 1, and he runs it all the way to the end zone was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. Maybe that's so we're gonna lose all the little mini counters off the tush push. That's what we're gonna miss. We're not gonna miss the tush push itself. We're just gonna miss all the little counter plays that teams can run off of it, like the Eagles doing their little fake toss, like doing the toss play against the Buccaneers, or the Ravens doing this one. That's we're gonna miss all the fake tush pushes. Is when the play gets banned. But we move on to rapid fire. We go to Madrid. We go to Madrid. The Dolphins beat the Commanders 16-13. Did you watch this one? I saw some of it. It was all right. It wasn't exceptional football play. The Commanders moved the ball down the field. The run game with Chris Rodriguez, they've benched Bill, so that's interesting. But overall, this was a game that was on that had no meaning to it whatsoever, except the fact that like now you kind of laugh at like the Dolphins are turning it around. The Dolphins are now 4-7 after starting like 1-6 or something like that. They've won 3 out of their last 4. They get New Orleans, and then they get the Jets coming off a bye. And then they have Pittsburgh. They have Cincinnati. Is Joe Burrow playing? Because they're probably punting on the season. I don't know, but I definitely do think they're saving jobs. down in Miami. And it was a report today that if Mike McDaniel returns, Tua would be his quarterback. So I think they're soft launching, guys. I think they're soft launching and basically saying, listen, we can't cut Tua because it would be like $100 million in dead cap. So we're just going to bring back Mike McDaniel and we'll do the same thing again and then we'll fire everybody. I don't know. That was kind of the way I stemmed it together, but this was a game that happened. I don't need to say much more. Has no playoff implications. Marcus Mariota versus Tua. Is Mariota Hawaii? Yeah. Yeah. There we go. We got a lot of Hawaiis. And then we get into the Texans and the Titans. This was a weird. I think it was like 3-0 at half. Yeah, it says it right there. It was 3-0 at half. The Texans kind of were moving the ball, but just not finishing anything. The Titans were not moving the ball, especially in the ground game. They had a 14% rushing success rate. Houston at 27. The fact that Houston's run game almost doubled somebody's success rate in a single game is kind of crazy. That rushing attack is terrible. But Davis Mills wins again. Pretty comparable stats in the advanced stat department. Both of them just hovering at that like net neutral. That EPA. Cam Ward was at 0.03 and Davis Mills was at 0.01. So right at like 0.00 the neutral EPA. But the Texans win another one. They're back in the hunt graphic. The Titans are still just trying to get closer and closer. I know Titans fans are trying to they were trying to get Mike McCoy now fired and be the first team ever to fire the interim coach. So that was kind of interesting. I like that. I like that. Let's just make this the worst dumpster fire you've ever seen. That entertains me. I also love that they're 1-9 now, and the one win that they have is that ridiculous game against the Cardinals. Just unbelievable game against if that ends up being the only win that they get this season, that would be something to look back on. It'd be like, we were this close to having another winless team with like a rookie quarterback that everybody kind of likes. That'd be interesting. But they lose again, and the Texans win again. There you go. And then we hit on the Steelers and the Bengals. The biggest part of this game was it was not as fun as the first one when they played on Thursday Night Football. But the other part was like Rodgers left with a wrist injury. He plays the Bears next week. That was a bummer. So he's probably going to miss next week. He's not going to play. Kyle Duggar had a pick 6 in this one when it was still like in consequence. Jamar Chase spit on Jalen Ramsey, which again, throwback to the Jalen Carter, like, don't spit on people, guys. What are we doing? Especially Jamar, who is like one of my favorite players. To have that happen, that sucks. And then he goes on and he's like, I didn't do it. Which objectively is funny to be like, I didn't do it. When it's like, this is the NFL. Like, there's going to be cameras that see you. But yeah, this was a game that happened again. Burrow like reactivated this week, so again he's trying to play. I hope he plays. I love watching Joe Burrow play. But let's give it up for the agenda. Let's clap it up, everybody. Mason Rudolph 0.56 EPA per play today when he came in. He had a 59% passing success rate. He also had an average depth of target at 2.7. So, yeah, he was throwing less than 3 yards downfield on 16 attempts today. But, hey, I mean, that is sometimes that's what you got to do when you come in the game. But, yeah, this was a game that happened. I didn't watch any of it. This was like red zone exclusive. I saw the pick 6. I was like, oh, the pick 6 happened. That was cool. Good job, Kyle Duggar. Like, he's become a real player for this team, too, with what he was able to do in terms of, like, you know, man match against the Colts and now getting a pick 6. Like, they got him for free. So it's cool to see him being a real player for this team. But this was not a game on my schedule or on my TV. The Steelers don't really get reservations on my quad box. I don't know about you guys. Send in your quad box so I can react to your quad box. I'm gonna stop saying that. And then we get into the final one. The Chargers get blasted by the Jaguars and their run game. They finally, what was it? The Jags really worked in Bashal Tutin a lot here in this one after last week and how they collapsed late in that game against Houston. They really leaned into the run game. 15 carries for Bashal Tutin today, 74 yards. Travis Etienne had 19 carries for 73 yards. They even mixed in LaKeith Allen at the end of the Syracuse legend. He was one of my guys in the draft, so to see him being productive in garbage time, that warms my heart. And then I didn't see much of this game. Jaguars had a 62% passing success rate. This was one of them that I was going to go back and watch later anyway, and now that it's like, well, I'm not going to watch the Chargers offense because I know who's playing left tackle, and he's terrible. But the Jaguars will be it'll be an interesting watch in the run game department, and then also Jacoby Myers. Whenever I did have this on for a little bit, Jacoby Myers downfield. It was a good trade. It was a good trade for them. Again, I did make a take where Jacoby Myers outproduces Brian Thomas the rest of the year. No, Brian Thomas is hurt, but I think even if they play together, I think Jacoby Myers is already the better player and probably outproduces him. I'm going to stand on that take. Yes, we're standing on takes, everybody. Stand on your takes. But that's it for all of the games today. We talked all of the games in 50 minutes. So again, if you like my voice and especially my nasally voice because I'm coming out of a cold here. Of course, you guys missed me this week, so I had to come on and do a little solo show. But sometimes these solo shows get a little rambly, get a little talky. But no, this was fun. Only the Saints were on bye this week, so I don't have any Tyler Shuck reports. Everybody, so sorry, everybody. Stick around. I was trying to stay tuned and stick around. Stick tuned. Am I right? But the Saints play the Falcons this week. That one's interesting. All right, let's preview the schedule, guy. What are the games next week? Eagles Cowboys, could that be good? Bucs and Rams, that's Sunday night. That one's interesting. Browns Raiders, anybody? Browns Raiders would be interesting, especially if Shedeur plays. I hope Shedeur plays. Some weird games. A lot of high spreads in this one. Lions Giants, Patriots Bengals, Seattle Titans. Yeah, there's a lot of Jets Ravens. A lot of monster spreads this week. So stay tuned for some. Here at the Pigskin Project. I'm Matt. This is Ben. But. Yeah, if you want to see our preview shows, all three of us, not just me talking. Let's remove that. Not just me. I am with Ryan. I'm with Ben. You know and love them. They handled the fort this week. They were awesome this week, guys. But and then Tuesday. So Tuesdays is college football. That's just me and Ben, or Ben and I. Sorry. We talk about college football. We'll talk about the new rankings, how Texas is dead. Heartbreaking, right? And then we'll get into Wednesday's show. Will be NFL preview. They did a great job this week with the rankings. They power ranked, right? Yep. They power ranked. They did the preview show. They handled down the fort while I was out. I wasn't placed on IR, guys. I was just out. It was just week-to-week injury, so I'll be back. Don't worry. But overall, fun show, fun ramble sesh, guys. This one was good, but overall, I'm now just talking. All right, this is the end of the show. You know when it Wednesday nights is when we talk NFL. Tuesday nights is when we talk college football. If you're entertained by football, more football talk. If you're entertained by me, if you're entertained by Ben or you're entertained by Ryan, or what if it's all three of us together on Wednesdays, or what if it's just Ben and I on Tuesdays, you can stick around, stay tuned, and like and subscribe. I got to do that more. I got to like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. You got to say that for the algorithm. But thank you, everybody. See you in the next one. Yeah. Good job.